Okay, let's do this. Basics for the seventh hub. So we're learning about the seventh hub correlated with the crown chakra and the prefrontal cortex and the final stages of psychological development for most developmental psychology in terms of like Western practices. And this corresponds with adulthood, early adulthood, and the kind of final development of the prefrontal cortex, as discussed in the last section. So, for basics, we'll get into it here. So, the exploration in this hub benefits from physical anchoring because contemplating larger themes, reducing distractions, and being physically still can stir up agitation. The original intention of the physical yoga practice was to settle this agitation by using movement to release energy. The challenging physical postures were intended to calm and tire the body to decrease distraction, creating optimal conditions for entering inner calm and meditation. And this is something pretty relatable as far as doing yoga, which is like how, like when, a lot of practices end in shavasana when you kind of lay down and just kind of that calm that you're cultivating. I mean, the thing is it's, I imagine that the lifestyle of a, modern human compared to when Patanjali was, you know, who are that's considered to be an amalgam by like a lot of academics, but like just in that time that it's like the need to kind of like rinse out a lot of overstimulation physically. Modern life is probably really up the amount of like intensity that a body stores. And also, yeah, anyway, so I imagine that's part of it. So if the physical reality of our body is bypassed, the inquiry and exploration of this hub can generate a surprising amount of reflexive agitation and distraction. Even with a complementary lower hub practice, when we try to be still, the inclination to indulge the arising resistance of distraction becomes strong. You're standing on the threshold of profound and transcendent stuff. I discussed the fact that resistance gets stronger the closer we get to something that will change us. See chapter 6. Resistance in this hub can be astonishing. So using physical practices becomes essential, as does noticing the impulse to crowd inner space with the stimulation of music, media, texting, talking, shopping, or whatever form of distraction we prefer. So an important thing here is like one thing, harking now back to the beginning of the book, which is that we're recruiting all aspects of our nervous system. We're not leaving anyone out. And if we leave out the physical sense of attention to our physicality, that will surge. And demand attention with anxieties and like agitations and fixations. And so one of the, so a way to actually decrease the turbulence of resistance is to really establish a first hub practice of trust. Because one of the, like at least, I'll start just speaking from, personally, is that once that's reconciled, like impending sense of like physical, like having to always be like hyper vigilant about physical safety might seem unrelated, but it's the deeper aspects of that are reaching into this love that's been discussed about keeping you safe, keeping you alive. Um, this deep love that's actually like formed a lot of this adaptation, which was like to ferry us through difficult waters, and then we're kind of like still in that same boat. And it's not the boat, it's this kind of the part of us that built it, the essence, that sort of ongoing, like, infinite creativity that finds the adaptations. And as a result of that, it's like by divesting from its creations, like, by holding on to them when they've outlived their usefulness. We see this in a lot of ways as far as the first hub is concerned, with even clearing physical space is where this also leaps into the seventh hub, like first hub, seventh hub thing of, like, space and physical safety and the sense of trust that you have in yourself that, you will be okay, that you'll be able to make it through challenging situations, and that, death, this is might be kind of heavy, but that death is imminent, and that to live with this kind of like ultimate fear of it it's like kind of softening that with sort of a knowledge that, it's kind of like, it's discussed in death in the chapter 4 for the first hub. It's just that it's like to be aware of its inevitability is like the Bhutan monks and, soon we will all be dead, our hopes and fears irrelevant from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Um, just that's not a practice about being morbid, it's actually a practice about enlivening. So it is the physical body is important here, and in a lot of practices that we see, like with meditation, um, there's kind of like you talk about like a body mind separation. There can be a tendency to not be paying attention to one or the other, like it's physical or the sort of this aspect of this ephemeral kind of quality that we're accessing, which is really connects us um to something that's kind of, sort of unnameable, I guess, unknowable, but it's like the ultimate divining power of our life. Yeah. I know when I wrote this, I actually probably felt didn't d I like, my own direct experience with this has just only been increasing over the last years, so, yeah, I think I was a little bit more kinda, like, not rigid, but just less surrendered into this. So all the previous hubs have paradoxes of ambiguity that ultimately prepare us. And the seventh hub is the pinnacle of paradox. Instead of allowing programmed reflexes to steer us with reactivity, paradox and ambiguity require us to tolerate the knowledge that things change constantly and to aspire to remain dynamic, responsive, and aware. Subconscious and unconscious reflexes operate without nuance. They are yes no reactions, and conscious thought is a legitimate threat to the status quo. Now, yeah. So the ultimate shadow of this hub is absolute certainty, because things are completely true in context and in moments that are constantly changing, and the relative truth winds up shifting in terms of its relativity to the things that surround it. So, um and even the I guess the saying you'd say is all truth contains paradox, that facets of it are changing. Yeah. So that to like, I think there was, like, a question once, I think, I think it was, like, Oprah's spiritual Sundays or whatever, the Soul Sundays, that her question she would say, "What do you absolutely know for sure?" Most people were like, "Nothing." Right? I mean, what do you know that has never changed in terms of its, honestly, like something where it's like, I should think that that's true forever. That's another pointer to be like, okay, it's something that's, yeah. It goes back to the thousand petaled lotus of this like continuous unfolding. And it's funny because like in the beginning of the book, in the oil slick in this, which is sort of funny, is the notion of something that's the same material constantly changing and revealing sort of different colors and shapes and when you look at like some petrol on water, outside, it's like constantly, even if there's no wind, there's just kind of the surface tension on the water and stuff is constantly like moving it around. So it's like keeps being new colors and new, like, if you look at it, it's really, it's really wild. So, okay. So if we're repetitive, persistent, and sincere, the questions we ask in the seventh hub receive very real and undistorted answers. Again, if we're receptive. Much of what holds us back involves attachments and certainties involving beliefs that no longer serve us. This doesn't mean that release and surrender are easy. And in fact, being willing and able to change your mind and to let go is profoundly difficult. So only you know when you're ready, and only you know when you know. So there's a trap of mistaking rigid belief systems and reflexive bias for conviction, which interferes with the ability to grow and change. And keep in mind that earnestly exploring other perspectives can allow us to strengthen our opinions and positions, but to do it with more compassion and context. So, yeah, actually, that one's really good. We can never fully know what's best for anyone other than ourselves, but seeking to understand other positions and perspectives gets us closer to our humanity and to others. And there it is. Yeah, it's interesting because this is not, I mean, when I was working on the book, I worked on it for, like this has gone through like many iterations and been read and reshaped and rewritten and edited and moved around and parts cut out and added in indefinitely. And something that I found when I was writing it, which really points to it's just I find things in this still. It's just I still find things, and it's not to say it's just it's like the inspiration that kind of moved through me to write this. Yeah, I mean, like, it's fun, for the years I was working on it, I just wrote, like, worked on this, like, an extraordinary amount every day. I loved it. I felt, I felt like I was living in another land, like, I was transported to just a completely different state and a different life, and when I left it, when we passed the manuscript over to design, it was like that feeling of leaving a place that feels like a home that you'll never return to. And my case in point to this right now, like the thing that's coming up for me right now, is that I was like, I wrote with ferocity every day. I charged at this around the clock every day. And right now I don't write at all. So I'm like back to my previous state. This like came through me and it's done. Like apparently I'm not a writer. I mean, I really was like when I was in it, I'm like, I'm a writer. But now it's like the impetus to write is just, it's like kind of passed through. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. My editor was like, oh, you're going to really want to write again. It's like, maybe, but right now it's like, it's interesting too, because I'm seeing this and it's like even when I was writing it and I was hitting really hard times, because it was incredibly challenging at times, incredibly challenging, as like probably can be imagined, um, that I'd find the answers to like get me through in the book. Just kind of just this magical quality to this that is so above and beyond me. I couldn't begin to be like, look at my great work. This is not only in the sense of like whatever kind of like place I was in when I wrote it, but also just the fact that there's like kind of this infinite number of other works that have contributed, that like came together for this as well. So yeah. So on the practical side, it's the fact that it's like so much like incredible positive influence from I mean, the bibliography speaks for itself. The bibliography is actually like cut in half too, because my editor was very specific that we only include things that were directly referenced in the book. Whereas I felt there were a lot of books that I'd read in the creation of this that really influenced sort of the ethos of it, that is like I wanted it in the bibliography because it really felt like it was part of like explaining what the book is. But I let the professional over, like I deferred to the professional, which is like she was always right. So yeah, at least 99% of the time. So it's a good record. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up for today. And again, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please, if you have any questions, any thoughts on this, please add into the comments. I love that. I'll answer any comment. I'll respond to any comment. Likes, any kind of interaction is really appreciated. If you want to reach out to me and you don't have my personal contact information, at the Parinama Method on Instagram, you can direct message me there. So anyhow, all right. See you next time. Bye.